Hey, this is the Antisocial Socialite back at it again. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, you have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell, so that when I get to running this mouth, baby, you are in the loop. It's Corona news update, just some thoughts. Where do I begin? I'll start with the conspiracy theory attack. Okay. You don't want to be the one dancing around singing "I told you so." Okay. And I kind of feel like, are we being lured into a false sense of security? Are we being lured into is it a distraction? Like I said in previous videos, are people who are allegedly in the truther community being used as controlled opposition for the controlled opposition? It's like the distraction from the narrative is actually being used to distract from the real agenda. For example, we were told that the war in Iraq was about a war on terror, even though since the war on terror, there's been more terrorists. So the unofficial narrative was it's really about oil. But some people say, no, the real war was about drugs, because there are certain agencies that make money from the drugs that are grown in that region of the world. And in order to continue to monopolize on that drug trade, you have to wage a war. So people are running around saying, they're lying. It's not about terrorism. It's about oil. Not realizing it wasn't about oil either. It was about drugs. And I kind of feel like the truther community, quote unquote, is actually being used in a similar way. Because when the truther movement started, there wasn't that much information about. There were certain videos that I watched that were amazing breakdowns, which were removed from YouTube years ago. I just can't find them. I remember one video was of Lady Gaga doing that performance, the infamous performance where, she's dancing on the stage. I think she was singing Poker Face, and then she kind of keels over and bends down in the middle of the stage. And you don't notice at first, and then you look down and realize red dye is coming down as though she's been shot or something, and she's bleeding. And then she just ascends into the light, and everyone's just breaking it down step by step, the rituals, the death of the old self, how she becomes illuminated as she elevates up between the two pillars, the Masonic pillars. I think it's Boaz and Joachim. It's like, that video was just amazing, but I cannot find it anywhere. I think it was the 2009, is it the VMAs or something? And when people started talking about the Masonic influence of the world and who really controls the world and are there agendas, it was far-fetched, and it wasn't that much. There wasn't that much. It kind of was like, are you reaching? But now it's kind of like everywhere you look, people are talking about conspiracy theories, to the point where even the mainstream media is having to address it. Now, a couple of days ago, I was looking at some videos on YouTube. I was looking at news stories. And I watched a video about this black man who recovered from the virus. I'll try and put the link in the description box below. And, when it comes on to interviews, we always have to remember that they do a multitude of interviews, but there's only a handful that make the final cut. It's like if you watch a music video, I always encourage people, don't listen to the music. If you want, turn the music down and focus on what's going on in the background. Because if you're watching these videos over and over again, subconsciously you're taking in everything, but you just consciously don't realize what is going on. And it was so funny that this guy, he got the virus, he became really ill, he's recovered now, and he has to mention conspiracy theories. It's like the lady that I showed you the video where she turns around and says, it doesn't matter which God you serve. Like, out of all the people that they could have interviewed and all the things she could have said, it was just such a strange thing to say to me, because to people who believe in God, it really does matter. Maybe because you don't believe in God, then maybe for you it doesn't matter. But for the people who actually believe in some type of spirituality or religion, it really does matter. So it seems such a, well, maybe we live in a liberal society, so it's an acceptable thing to say, but it just seems such a flippant thing to say. But it's put it there by design. And I thought when I heard him say, a lot of people are talking about conspiracy theories, what really irritates me is the straw manning. Nobody said, well, not nobody. There are some people who actually say there's no virus. There are even people who say viruses don't exist. I wouldn't go that far, okay? But what we are saying is there are other viruses that have killed many more people, and they are not shutting down the planet because of those viruses. I mean, I watched, I think it was Fox News, and I'm going to get to a Fox News report that came out about 12 hours ago. Maybe a little bit of a tinfoil hat moment with some numerology. And it was like, when you look at the number of people, for example, in the States that kill themselves every year, it's about the same as the number of people who've died allegedly of coronavirus. There was another article that says that, I believe in New York, they added like another 4,000 deaths, like attributed another 4,000 deaths, an additional 4,000 deaths to coronavirus that were never tested and confirmed to be coronavirus. So that means, say, for example, it was alleged that 10,000 people died, it's 6,000. Now, 6,000 is still a lot of people. It's a sad situation. And our condolences obviously go out to the family of those who have lost people, okay? But it still begs the question, why would you inflate the numbers if there really are that many people dying? And that brings me to the Fox News report. I can't remember his name now, from Fox News, talking about it appears that actually it's confirmed that there was some type of mistake in a lab, and that's how this virus got out into the community. And it's like, this is something that has been floating around for months. There have been videos that have been going around for a while saying that this was a biological weapon. One of the things that was stated or hypothesized, I don't even know if that's a real word, is that it was a biological weapon to disperse protesters. And that seemed like a little bit far-fetched, but then they use all kind of things on us, EMF, like sonar type guns, that fire radiation at you and make you feel hot, so you disperse. I mean, we had here, there was like some little beacon things on the walls. Apparently it emits a high-pitched sound that only a young person could hear. So where you have young people congregating, this thing was giving off this noise that irritated them, would drive them away. Because, at night or where there's benches or whatever, maybe a park, they would congregate. And people who lived in the area, they felt uneasy about groups of young people gathering outside. So this type of technology that a young person could hear that an older person couldn't was apparently employed to try and disperse crowds. So we know that they use technology to get rid of people from certain places. And as again, I'm just throwing out ideas and conjecture because I don't know, and I don't want to give the impression I know. But when you really think about it, France has had a lot to say, and they've been on total lockdown. I hear at one point, I think it was 7 in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, you could not be on the road, not even feel like you're one. I don't even know if it's like for your one piece of exercise. I don't know how people are coping with food. I don't know. maybe that's a bit of a exaggeration, but it's like, unless you really have to be out, you cannot be out, like a proper curfew. We had the yellow vest protesters. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, 2019 was the year of the protester, really. You know, you had in Spain the Catalonia protests. You know, some want to stay in the EU, some don't want to stay. There's that breakdown of people. Spain is heavily hit. Italy, I don't think had a lot of protests. I'm not sure, but I hear Italy has very bad air quality. You know, I think Italy's economy is really tanking. They have a lot of older people in Italy. So Italy is a prime target for kind of culling the population, simply because, you know, economically maybe it's not able to thrive. Iran has decent medical care as far as I can understand, but I don't think Iran is in America's good books. Although Iran has the capacity to help its people, there are heavy sanctions on Iran that keep Iran suppressed and suffering under this pandemic, this shamdemic. So when I really thought about it, a lot of places that had a lot of protesting, here in the UK, in London, there were a lot of people protesting against Trump. These are the kind of places that are getting heavily hit. Now I know it's climate, it's milder climate. Places that are very hot don't seem to be as affected. We know that, you know, it is an international problem. There are cases all over the world. But some of the hardest hit countries have had a lot of political unrest. And, you know, obviously China had a lot of rioting and people protesting over the fact that they don't have freedoms. So when you really think about peaceful protests or non-peaceful, and them just wanting to get everybody off the street, disperse and go home, this virus or this pandemic couldn't have come along at a better time. So when we look at the Fox News report from 12 hours ago, I don't have the title. You know, it says the global deaths, it was a number like, I can't even remember, was it 1 million, 2 million? No, the global cases, sorry, is like 2 million something. And it ends with the number 888. Now, in angel numerology, the number 888 indicates that financial and material abundance is on the way. You will receive unexpected rewards for good deeds. The number 8 is connected to self-reliance, reality, manifesting wealth and positive abundance, dependability, truth and integrity, self-confidence, judgment, achievement, giving and receiving, hear this one, philanthropy and serving humanity. It is the karma or universal law of cause and effect. Now again, could it be a coincidence that this number ends with 888? Maybe. But when you look at the definition of what in angel numerology 888 symbolizes, and remember, 8 is a significant number to the Chinese. 8 is the number of prosperity to the Chinese. If you have a license plate with an 8 in it, Chinese people will pay a lot of money to get that, because for them 8 is a number that is associated with good luck. So what did Bill Gates say he wanted to do when he said he wanted to step down from Microsoft? He wants to focus on his philanthropic work, his charity. The charity that just keeps giving problems, but giving. So I found it so strange that the global cases of coronavirus allegedly are like 2 million or 1 million, I think it's 2 million, but it ends with this number. And then the number of global deaths is like 133,000. You know, we all know 33. The video was 3 minutes and 11 seconds long. which obviously 3 times 11 again is 33. So is it coincidence, conjecture? I'm just throwing it out there. You can do with that information what you want. But when we look at the number 888, it's like, it's hard to believe that there is prosperity coming because of the economic shutdown, which I believe was orchestrated and planned. But it could be for who? It's going to be for the organizations that caused the collapse. The World Health Organization, who is owned, bought and paid for by China. You know, the big companies that already have a monopoly, they will be able to buy up even more of what's left because people will be desperate. The middle classes are gradually being whittled away because they are not wealthy enough to buy up maybe, but they still have enough to kind of not be bankrupt. But for those people who are hand to mouth, literally paycheck to paycheck, you know, or they're non-essential workers and they're struggling financially, they're talking about the rise in unemployment. They're talking about people starving. You know, you have, for example, farmers who are having to dump their produce because they're producing great stuff, but there's nobody open to process it. So when people say, why would they do this? As I said in previous videos, this is a battle for souls. This is not about the economy. This is not about politics. But these things are a distraction or a sham to distract us away from what's actually happening. You know, a lot of people are looking at Donald Trump like he's going to be some type of savior. They talk about him draining the swamp and, you know, he wants to open up the economy. And it's funny he said that because I was looking at a paper from about a week ago and it was saying how, what price would you pay to open the economy? I don't know if I can find the article now. And it's not really professionals giving their opinion. I suppose I should just look in the business section. And it's like, it says, what price will we all pay for this lockdown? And people are just giving their opinions all over the country. You know, some people are saying this, some people are saying that. But one thing that's for sure is a lot of people believe that locking down the entire country keeps people safe. Now, we know Sweden has been, you know, doesn't want to do lockdowns. They don't want to do isolations and quarantining. They don't really adhere to social distancing. And they said, although at the moment we have a lot of people infected, maybe a high death rate, it's the inevitable that's going to happen to any country once people start mixing. Might as well get it out of the way sooner rather than later. And we don't want to, you know, halt the economy so that people get into more problems. But here in the UK, they're talking about your children's children still having to pay for the debt that's going to be created by this so-called pandemic. That the global poverty, you know, this goal that they, you know, they just throw out every year. Like, how many years are we going to still be trying to give people clean water? Like, from when I was a child, I hear these adverts about we need to help people get clean water. And I just don't understand why. Well, I do understand why. There's still people who don't have clean water. It's not because you can't give them the clean water. It's because you don't want them to have clean water. Okay? Charities generate a lot of money. All these big organizations generate a lot of money. So why would you give people clean water when you can always run charities to beg people to give you money? Which is something I'm going to come on to with this veteran who happens to be 99 years old, obviously 33 times 3, you know, doing 100 laps, okay, whatever. It's like you want people to keep giving to charity because charity, just like war and other disasters, generate income. And it's like, this crisis is going to be another crisis that's not going to go to waste. because now we're talking about poverty in the developing world, how the efforts are going to be set back. But even in the developed world, you're going to have people who are feeding, trying to live off of food banks, donations. The reality of the situation is money is valueless. The only reason why people have money is because we're told we need money. But where we don't have a dependence on buying goods because we don't manufacture our own, and I don't mean like community wise, but just in our little sphere, like in our homes and things, people don't have a great need for a whole lot of money. Last night I watched a show about this family, and I think it was 8 children, because they bought this big house after they got their money together, saved up, and then they bought a huge house, and they wanted to convert it into a 7-bedroom property. So I'm pretty convinced they had about 8 children. And they homeschool, they have land, and they have animals. And me and my friend were watching this show, and I said, I'm sure these people are not really that affected by this lockdown. The children are happy, they've got lots of space to play, they're running around getting to understand how nature works, they're rearing their animals, which is fresh organic produce. Like, this is how human beings are supposed to live. The only reason why there's deprivation is because people, instead of trading the old-fashioned way, they're trading with cash that you can't plant, you can't grow anything, cash that you can't, eat. It's valueless. You really understand how valueless physical cash is once you go into a shop and you can't find anything to buy. For a moment, I felt really powerless when I was trying to do some stockpiling and some, just shopping for my everyday needs. And it's just store after store cleaned out. It's like I've got this money but nowhere to spend it. It was a strange feeling. It really lets you know, like, how vulnerable you are to the government, how vulnerable you are when you are in a society where you're dependent upon, the shops giving you food and things. Because once that is taken away, even if you have money, if there's nowhere for you to spend it, like, everybody started rushing to online. And I know people who were like 6,000 in the queue for certain online services. Like, they weren't going to get a delivery for like a month. So if you had no food, you'd be forced to go out, queue, and we still have social distancing, limited opening times, queues down the street for the services we need. It's okay for a young person, but what about some of those older people that haven't necessarily got someone to go shopping for them? How are they going to stand in queues and come out every single day to pick up a handful of groceries? It's like, this idea of the lockdown, we can see in other places like Sweden, it hasn't really changed how people have become ill and the death rates. That's why I don't believe that it's really about keeping people safe, because every single year we have flu, but we don't do these things. So now it's all coming out that, it's possible that this was actually some type of spill in a lab, this is kind of really what I wanted to talk about in this video, about people who do the conspiracy theory things. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with their life, but I would say don't rejoice. You may be right, but the information that gets out is the information that they want out. So is it a distraction? Because I'm looking at these papers and it's hard to find anything past coronavirus. I did find one article from Thursday, the 9th of April. It says wildflowers could have their best summer for years if many councils reduce roadside verge mowing. Oxydaisies and harebells would thrive with a shift from 4 to 2 mows a year, said wildlife charity Plant Life. So we all know that, or believe that the green agenda, this, save the planet agenda, is just another arm on this Luciferian tree, that they're overinflating, just like with this coronavirus, the impact that humanity has had. We need less people on the road, we need less cars, we need, less people cutting grass and trimming trees. Don't you see how much better it is without people? And I begin to wonder, is this going to be something that people will say, actually, it was really nice not having so many people out on the road? If population control is the order of the day, they'll use anything to justify getting rid of people on the planet, even though most of the planet in terms of people is empty. I'm sure small countries could hold the entire population of the world, because most countries are empty. I don't even know if places like India and China, with the huge populations that they have, are really as crowded as we believe them to be. It's just that because the way we're clustered in cities and towns, it feels like there are huge amounts of people one on top of the other, and they are by design. But outside of the cities and the towns is just empty country space. So we've all seen the videos of villages being swarmed by nature. It's a beautiful thing to see. But the reality is this: you feel like there is a big problem with nature because of the commercialism. The way that everything has been monetized means that we're killing the planet when we really don't have to. There's more than enough land and space. As I said, with this family, the mother's homeschooling the children, they help out on the land, they have chickens that give them fresh eggs, they know where food comes from because they're rearing it, it's natural, it's organic. Everybody's minding their own Jesus Christ, their own little business. And then everybody's sustaining themselves. Nobody's putting a strain on the economy or themselves trying to go to work to earn this money to buy everything that they need, because everything just comes naturally up out of the earth. So it's kind of strange where this is going. But people, even myself, I said, this feels like Revelations 13. I don't believe that we're in the time of the Great Tribulation, but I do believe that this was a dummy run. I do believe that this is a precursor. I believe that this is going to be used as an excuse to change a lot of things. If there is a surge in the number of cases, you won't need to gradually get people used to the idea of a lockdown. At the moment, they want to extend how long the lockdown will last. But if they do lift it, and then there's a spike in the number of cases, the heavy-handedness that I believe they'll come back on us with, restrictions in terms of what we can and can't do, it's going to be immediate and maybe even more severe, which could really be the beginning of the end in terms of us actually going into something closer to Revelations 13. I don't think we're at Revelations 13 yet, just because, some people say because the church hasn't been raptured. If you believe in the rapture, that's fine. Pre-tribulation, that's one thing or another. But I just don't see how globally everything is in place yet for people to be on one religious accord. We still don't have that global governance to the extent that you could say everybody's sovereignty or most people's sovereignty has been whittled away and now everybody's on this global agenda, as it were. But just like the Tower of Babel, the scripture says that during the time, I can't even remember which passage of scripture, but I believe it's in Genesis, everybody lived in one place. They were on one accord. They spoke the same language, and they had a mind to build this tower to reach to heaven. And God said, when these people work together, there's nothing they cannot do. And it says God confounded the language. He gave everybody different languages, so people couldn't understand each other, and they dispersed. Everybody who could understand each other went off, and that created different nations. And what this has shown is that the Tower of Babel is a reality, because although we have different natural languages, in terms of our conversation, you can't talk to anyone around the world and they don't understand what the word lockdown, quarantine, COVID, or coronavirus. If you say to anybody, are you socially distancing yourself? They know exactly what you mean. We have been united on one accord through the internet, through the media. So things of biblical proportions are really taking shape in ways that they weren't possible before because of the way technology has advanced. Yes, we have a huge amount of people on the planet, but I think it's about 2/3 now are online. So you can feed them propaganda all the time. And obviously we're a captive audience because you only have really the TV or your mobile phone as a way to connect with the outside world. Especially if you can't go and visit friends and family, you can only really interact with them through the media. And if they control the media, if they control the social media, you are at the mercy of whatever they bombard you with. Just like if you get a newspaper, half of that newspaper or most of the paper that's not business and maybe a bit of sport at the back is just coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. Like they are literally beating you over the head with it constantly. So that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about, the numbers, the numerology. So we've got this man here. What's his name? A World War II veteran is raising funds for the NHS by walking 100 laps of his garden and was left speechless after he was heading towards 10 million. I think it's more than 10 million now. I think it's closer to 12. So here we go. 99, 3 times 33. What's his name? Tom Moore. Again, don't let a good crisis go to waste. But a good question is, where is that 12 million gonna go? Okay, it's great that he's raising money for nurses and this and that, but will that money actually get to any of the people that need it? I don't really know. There's an article in here about